What is trending? Breaking news. We're looking forward to rumors of nuclear showdown, nuclear war. And we're now seeing the signs are fulfilling the words of Luke 21 and verse 26. Men's hearts failing them for fear. And we're now living in a time when we're seeing catastrophes transpiring and even rumor of wars. As God's people, we need to be found prepared. Now today, I'm going to put a nail in a sure place. I do have a special guest today, and before I introduce and bring him on, I'm going to set the table from which we're going to feast from God's word. This is a serious, life-changing for the better presentation. This is a life and death matter. Those who fail to prepare are actually planning to fail. Let's get into this. We're told in chapter 7 of Revelation, verse 1 through verse number 3. After these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth. And what are they doing? They're holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, hurt not the sea, hurt not the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. I want to be very emphatic right now. When those 4 winds are released, you will see nuclear showdown. Nations rising against nations. And there is going to be a nuclear exchange. It's going to transpire based on the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. We're told in several statements, the 4 mighty angels, that's chapter 7 of Revelation, they hold back the powers of this earth until the servants of God are sealed in their foreheads. The nations of the world are eager for conflict. Is that not going on right now? But they are held in check by the angels. When this restraining power is removed, there will come a time of trouble and anguish. Deadly instruments of warfare will be invented. Vessels with the living cargo will be entombed in the great deep. And what would we call that today? Nuclear weapons, submarines. It goes on. All who have not God's spirit of truth will unite with the leadership of satanic agencies, but they are to be kept under control until the time shall come for the great battle of Armageddon. And I touched on this past Sabbath, the great battle of Armageddon, nuclear showdown. I'm setting the stage for my special guest today. Here is the president-elect, nuclear showdown, the battle of Armageddon. Release that.
We have never been closer to World War III than we are today under Joe Biden. A global conflict between nuclear-armed powers would mean death and destruction on a scale unmatched in human history. It would be nuclear Armageddon.
There it is. Now we know, based on our study this past Sabbath, the Battle of Armageddon officially, publicly begins during the 7 last plagues, after God's people are sealed, after the mark of the beast. That's the Battle of Armageddon. The nuclear weapons from all the nations with nuclear weapons are going to be released on the earth. They will hurt the earth. They will hurt the sea. They will hurt the trees. They will hurt all life form on this earth. After knowing that, some people are going to think, so why talk about this? The mark of the beast is not here as yet. The 7 last plagues are not here as yet. That means the Battle of Armageddon, nuclear showdown, it's far off in the future. I have breaking news for you. You listen attentively. I believe based on prophecies from the Bible, expect a soft, small nuclear weapon exchange among nations. Expect that before the great showdown. Mark my words. It's no different. The 7 last plagues are going to come. They're called 7 last plagues for a reason. They are going to be preliminary, previous plagues before those 7 last plagues. And during the time of the 7 last plagues, the battle of Armageddon, nuclear weapons, that means before that point, you'll see small crises, even possibly a 1 exchange of nuclear armory. Great Controversy, page 589 says, expect in the last days disease and disaster until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. Let me get my guest in. Kevin Fuller is my guest today, and he's not a stranger to our platform. His videos are right here on the platform. Go to the search bar, punch in Kevin Fuller right here on YouTube. You'll see the previous videos. I'm going to bypass the pleasantries and the intro, get right into it. My brother, what are your eyes set on right now? What's trending? We can see this rumor of a nuclear showdown. Speak to us. How can we be prepared? But before we get there, tell us how serious this crisis is going to be. The small nuclear exchange between nations, the weapons, and then the great one that's coming in the Battle of Armageddon. Kevin.
Absolutely. Greetings, Pastor. Greetings, everyone. First of all, it's very, very serious. It's extremely serious. For one, you can see now that North Korea, who was usually all by themselves, have now joined forces with Russia. 2 superpowers, two trigger-hungry people ready to push the button at any time. Now that they band together, North Korea exchanged weapons with Russia, and Russia exchanged information and technology with North Korea, which makes them even a more stronger or more superpower. It gives them more accuracy now with their ICBMs, with their nuclear warheads, with all that. It is happening. Also, if you look at the power plant in Ukraine, they're just so tempted. That's just on the brink of collapse. When that happens, I mean, wow. So we're at a point where, Pastor, we're there. There's no getting around it.
You know, I just Googled nuclear in Google and I clicked on the news tab. CNN, the U.S. is on the cusp of a nuclear renaissance. One problem. What is the one problem? Americans are terrified of the waste. The Guardian, Iran is also saying, Reuters, Iran to hold nuclear talks with 3 European powers in Geneva. Iran declares it is doing more nuclear enrichment after IAEA rebuke. BBC, Ukraine war, new weapons, nuclear threat. It's all over. All over. This is what's trending, Kevin.
Yes, it's something. And then when you get countries like Iran in the mix, as you know, Russia had like a world summit themselves last month, and you had Iran, you had South Africa, you had other countries mixed in. And when you make Iran a nuclear power, they've already committed to destroying Israel with this weapon. And there's so many. If we look at where we are in America, there's so many people coming in with the borders being wide open. Don't you think these people are sending people in? And in this country, we know with money, you're able to get your hands on anything. When you talk about nuclear waste is even a weapon. And as you saw on CNN and what's trending with nuclear waste, we have so much of it, we can't get rid of it. Imagine what's going on with the other countries that's practicing and doing all this. We're really at the precipice of this thing. This is it.
It says here, nuclear escalation fears can't override Ukraine's right to defend itself. Now, you know exactly what they're saying with that headline.
And then Russia is saying now that America, Great Britain, the other countries have given the okay to Ukraine to go ahead and strike deeper inside Russia. Russia's saying, so we had the right to go ahead and launch this ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile. But not only do we have the right to do it, we're going to now continue to test our missiles on Russia, our missiles that are nuclear capable, which means they can adjust the warheads on these at any time. So they said, now we have the right to continue to test this on Ukraine, and they'll continue to do that.
Now, before you get into your meat and potatoes, the crux of the matter of your lesson today, you're sharing with me a brief testimony of a family member, what he heard and what he had to do. Without going into names and locations, just share with us broadly what you heard.
Oh, absolutely. So that family member is talking about what's going on in the cities with how, not only is the food toxic, everything's poison, and the population control is just bursting like crazy, but there's going to come a time that people won't be able to access food, water, and it's very short. It's happening now. The people that are not religious in my family, I have a sister who claims to be an atheist, but what she's seeing now and explained to me is so biblical, and I had to lay that on her. That's biblical. The Bible actually says that, and sure, the Bible actually says these things. We are facing something where you won't have food, you won't have water. Water doesn't grow, food doesn't grow in Walmart, doesn't grow in the parking lot. When these nuclear bombs spread, you're going to see a simulation in a little bit of a nuclear bomb hitting and the damage it does. But keep in mind, that's only one nuclear bomb. When they attack a state or a country, it's multiple. But real quick, Pastor, I'll say this as well. When a person like a leader that has the ability to push that button doesn't fear or respect God, doesn't fear his own death, he'll destroy the whole world. He'll destroy the whole world. We have to be awake for these things. So now people that's in the world are seeing these things, and they're saying things that you've taught on, that's been spoke of in the scripture. They're actually seeing these things come to pass without knowing anything about the Bible.
All right, let's go, Kevin. We have here preparing for nuclear fallout and collapse. Take it away. Essential safety measures and supplies.
Absolutely. So Russia, again, as you guys know, Russia is just, really at the point where now they said they can continue to test everything. It's so detrimental. So what happens is there's things that we need to prepare for. They talk about iodine tablets and things that you can purchase online in the event of a nuclear fallout. First, I'm going to give you a real brief, if it's okay. You just stop me when you're ready, Pastor, on how we can prepare for these things. In the event there is a nuclear explosion, okay? One of the things you have to do is you have to take cover immediately. Cover is key. Cover is key because of the nuclear fallout. If a bomb detonates in the air, it does more damage than if it hits the ground. So you got that initial explosion that takes out mass casualties. You've got the percussion or the wind, you might say, that's produced from that's so powerful that alone the force from that takes down other buildings. And then you got the radiation fallout. So if you see anything like that, never look directly at it, but head for cover as best you can, Pastor. And one thing people don't know that they do need to know is that the more layers and clothes you have on, the better. And the way you can cover yourself with cardboard, anything you see that's in the area, cover yourself with it in the event you do survive, because that initial fallout can last an hour to several hours. But then you start to peel off those things that's contaminated. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well as we seek to contaminate ourselves. But being in the country is going to be key, away from the populated cities. You get where a bomb blast radius, even at 100 kiloton, a bomb blast radius can extend 1 to 10 miles, up to 10 miles it can. And then it depends on the wind, and it depends on whether it hit the ground or whether it detonated in the air. And then from that, it's just casualty after casualty, contamination after contamination. So there's a lot of things we need to be aware of, Pastor.
Yes. As you share, I'll just move through the slides.
Absolutely.
So as you're speaking, the people can see, because some are visual learners.
Okay.
Kevin?
There's some websites out there that you need to check, and we'll have links to those in the description for supply list, water, at least anywhere from a day to 2 weeks. 2 weeks is so key because of nuclear contamination, depending on the wind, depending on how strong the wind is, can spread up to 100, 200 miles even. So from one warhead actually hitting, say, Chicago, that wind span, that can be carried, that nuclear dust can be carried up to 100 to 200 miles. And everything that it settles on becomes radioactive. what's going to be key, there are things you can buy, and this is just not to sound crazy, but these things are real, so it's going to happen. We know that. There's a little item called a Geiger counter, and you'll see that in one of the slides there, and it looks like a big thermostat, but that can tell you if you're irradiated. Area is irradiated, what that contamination seal, so is water bottles and things like that. So you're going to see some list here of different things that you can do to take care of yourself. There's home survival kits, food pantry, stockpile is going to be key, but we've always talked about that. But we take for granted as people that the things that we have now will always be available. Not true, not true. On the YouTube where you woke, there is a downloader software you can buy. You can purchase that and allows you to download a lot of these videos and create your own library. There's going to be a need for that very shortly. Well, you won't be able to get to YouTube. You won't be able to get online, but you can have these survivals, the do-it-yourself videos and preparedness for nuclear fallout. It's key that you all start to research and look at those things now, and then have a family plan. Because remember, they're not going to call you or set a calendar date like Russia did with America. Russia told America on last week to abandon the embassies. We are going to do a strike in Ukraine. That's not what's going to happen when the winds are released, or even before then with this trial. That's not what's going to happen. There won't be a warning. It won't be 3 o'clock in the day or 8 o'clock in the morning, just like you're getting up to go to work. You can be sleep right through it. If you are not prepared in any way for any kind of nuclear fallout or attack, you're going to be caught off guard. And that just brings to mind the foolish versions. We have to be ready now. And I know you guys hear a lot of this and you're probably getting tired of hearing it, but think about it. I was listening to C.D. Brooks, and he was saying that as the people's minds were so bent on who they were, they didn't notice the animals walking to the ark 2 by 2. The lions behind the sheep, nobody attacking, nobody eating each other. There's going to be a point where we won't believe anything. And as they did not believe Noah, even when they saw the animals now coming 2 by 2 by 2, somebody should have woke up. So I say to you today, we really need to wake up.
I believe that.
Yes.
You may continue, Kevin.
Yes, sir. So listen, so we need to make family plans on things to do. We need to know about contamination, aluminum foil, plastic, something as simple as plastic. These things can shield your home. If there is a nuclear fallout and you hear or see a big bright light, head immediately to your basement with whatever covers the things that you have to cover yourself. Okay. After that explosion, God willing, you're still here. Give that time for things to settle before you jump up and go outside. So if there's an explosion, you feel a house move, the house shake, give that time to settle before you go outside. If you could, make it an hour, because at that time, the wind is blowing by or blowing through. The pressure from a nuclear bomb is extremely strong. If you just look at some of the bombs as we visit or look at Ukraine, as we look at Israel, as we look at Gaza, you'll see what these smaller bombs are doing. So imagine if those were nuclear warheads. So give yourself at least an hour before you go out to explore or see what's happening. Keep your family safe and covered until you make that assessment. And that if you can gather water, if things that are sealed, more clothes, things, all those things that have not been contaminated, gather those things and keep those things covered and secure. Concrete, to some extent, acts as a great protection from nuclear fallout, okay, and from the effects of the explosion as well. So you want to get yourself down to the basement or to the lower area of a house. Country living. Country living is not excused so much from a nuclear bomb. It's, however, when the nuclear attack is put out there, it's generally designed to attack the cities. But that, remember, we said that fallout could travel for up to a couple hundred miles. But you have more time when you're in the country because you can witness and see what's going on, and you have time to prepare. Country living also gives you an opportunity to hit your underground bunkers or your shelters or your barns or what have you, things that you've already set up to cover up things to protect yourself. And remember this, one of the biggest things with contamination, your pets and your animals that you love so much can be contaminated by radiation because they're in and outside. You don't want to just pick up Fluffy and start kissing and hugging Fluffy. If you're still blessed to have him with you, he needs to be cleaned up and decontaminated. There's a bunch of ways to decontaminate, and soap and water starts as a biggie to get all that scrubbed off of you, putting on clean clothes. There's gear you can buy for kids, for infants, and for adults. You'll see people wearing the chemical mask. They have a way that you can unhook a straw from that and put it into a chemical bottle and drink water without you being contaminated. Contamination is something that's key. Some people, you may not see the effects right away. A lot of them you'll see instantly. If you ever watch the video or the footage that's available online of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you'll see that the heat was so intense that the blisters on their complete arms, on their arms and their backs and their stomachs swole all the way up and pop. So what you see dangling on their bodies that you thought was clothing that was burned, it was actually the skin that had exploded. The pain from that, and I guess trying to give you guys facts here, that's what we're doing. The pain from that was so intense that people just simply laid there to die because there were nowhere to go. All the nerves are exposed and all of that. If you witness this and you see these blisters and you do not pop or rupture those blisters, okay, get that person covered, get that person water, get that person to shelter as best you can, but be careful even how you move that person. But that does tell you contamination is there. Mask up, cover up, do whatever you can. When you head back into your place where you're going to live or stay or spend the night, remove that first level of clothing prior to going into that secure place to take as less contamination as possible. These things are all key for us. Pastor, people want to know, how do we help somebody else? How do we go there? How do we go there? Now is our time. Ellen G. White wrote so much about preparedness. The Bible teaches so much about preparedness. Now is the time not to get caught short, to be prepared for all these things. So whether we don't believe it's going to happen or not, they didn't believe the flood was coming. It had never rained before. They saw a small cloud coming, but they still didn't accept it. They saw the animals coming in 2 by 2. They still didn't accept it. We can't beat this in your head. You have to recognize the signs of the time. You have to be scriptured up, read the Bible, trust what's happening, trust God's word. It's proven itself. Pastor, you taught that things happen in sequence and in order. Sequence and in order. If you all know the prophecy, these things are happening in sequence, in order, just as it was said. As in the days of Sodom, so shall it be. We see so many things going on now that God is like, it's like to me, he's saying now. And when he says that, wow.
I want to remind those who are watching now and those hereafter of that predictive programming movie called Leave the World Behind. And in the closing scenes of that movie, documentary, you actually saw the mushroom cloud in the city.
Absolutely. Which
would represent New York, because of course it was shot in New York. So you're seeing this. Several months ago, they actually had an alert bulletin in the Northeast, New York and the whole Northeastern corridor. And they were actually running this bulletin, actually stating what to do if there is a nuclear fallout. And of course, some are going to say, well, it's precautionary. Is it possible that they're telling us what is to come? Now, tell us about this actual website that's called Nuke Map. Nuke Map. And then we're going to go through a simulation, because I believe people need to understand how important this lesson is when God says, don't reside in the cities. The cities are going to be wicked as Sodom and Gomorrah, as in the days of Noah, and the calamities are going to be more so in the cities. And we want to drive home this point with emphasis that country living is not suburban living. And looking at this nuclear map, you're going to see what we're talking about. So let me give Kevin the floor. Kevin, nuclear map.
Absolutely.
Just speak to us here.
People want to know how far away should they live to survive? Could they live to survive a nuclear attack? There's a website called nuclearsecrecy.com, nuclearsecrecy.com/nuclear map. So what you're going to see is you can, when you go to this website, you can actually click on that nuclear map. You can plug in your city. You can choose the size of the bomb, nuclear bomb, if it's a 10 kilogram or 5 megaton or whatever kiloton. You can choose the size of the bomb. You can choose whether it explodes in the air or on the ground. With Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they both exploded in the air. And you'll see they have more damage. You can pick your city and you can see the fallout radius. You can actually see the explosion and the fallout radius of what happens there. But keep in mind, when these strikes happen, it won't just be one bomb. It may be 5, it may be 25. Because as these powers unleash, remember, there's multiple countries that have nuclear warheads. And if they all release at the same time or attacked at the same time as they're doing Israel right now is fighting the war on 7 fronts. Hezbollah, you just go on and on and on, Iran and all their proxies. So if all of them were to attack even Israel at one time, no more Israel. Same way with America, it would be very difficult. So when you see that, Pastor, if you can play that, and you'll see this demonstration on how that spreads, and you'll get somewhat of an idea on how severe this is.
All right, Kevin, it's on the screen rolling here. Now, Kevin sent me several simulation screenshot of him actually using this nuclear map. You can actually put in the city, as he stated. You can put in what type of bomb, and then you can put air burst or surface burst, casualties, and the radioactive fallout. Then click the red button, detonate, and allow the numbers to rise in front of you. Now, Kevin, I must confess, I spent about 30 minutes, I'm not using any hyperbole, putting in several cities. Now, I want to share with the audience a screenshot. Look at this one. Remember, this is New York. And Kevin, I chose the bomb that they say Russia already has in its arsenal. Now, bear in mind, friends, bear in mind, whatever they say nations have in their arsenal, that's antiquated, that's outdated.
That's old.
So imagine what they have today, November 25th, 2024. Nevertheless, get back to the screenshot here. Now, notice in New York City, this bomb Russia has. When you hit detonate, look at the numbers below the red button. The numbers. If this is an air burst, it says 1.6 million people would die. Almost 3 million would be injured. New York. Let me look at this now. This is New York again, but if it is a surface detonation, 1.1 million people die. But look at the spread. If it's surface, 1.4 million would be injured. Look at New York, up into Stamford, Connecticut, all the way up on the North Coast. The North Coast. I'll give you one more. Kevin, I punch in LA.
Yes.
Look at the numbers. If it's air burst, 500,000 would die. 1.4 million people would be injured. Look at the radius. Country living is not suburb living. If it is surface detonation, one bomb now, 605,000 would be injured. I punch in Philadelphia. Look at the numbers right there. Almost 1 million if it's an air burst. If it's surface, look at the plume. Look where it would spread. Back up into New York. New Jersey, look at that. Connecticut. This is Washington, D.C. How could I forget this one? Almost 1 million would be injured if it's air burst. Surface, look at the spread. Baltimore, Maryland. Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Look at the spread. Up there in Harrisburg. This is Chicago. Look at the numbers. Air burst. Chicago, surface. The numbers, one bomb. And of course, Boston. Look at the numbers there. Higher. If it's airburst, if it's surfaced, the numbers are always lower for the surface. If it's airburst, more casualties, more injuries. Look at London, England. In London, almost 1 million would die. 2.2 million would be injured from one bomb. Airburst. If it's surface, 500,000 would die. 1 million would be injured if it's surfaced, detonated. Paris, France, 1.5 would die if it's airburst. 2.7 million would be injured. Imagine Jamaica. What would happen? Somebody type in, Pastor, check Seattle, Washington. Check Kingston, Jamaica. No, you check it.
You check it.
Are we now, preacher? The whole island. One bomb. And remember, inspiration says in Great Controversy, page 589, there will be disease and disaster until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. And then will come the new exalted system of religious faith. That means expect ruin, desolation before the national Sunday law. And that is what we call a small nuclear weapon exchange among nations before Armageddon, before the close of probation, before the 7 last plagues. Kevin, imagine if this were to happen right now.
Oh, absolutely. And then keep in mind,
from one, as you said, from one.
And keep in mind that they also don't just target the city. They do target the cities for mass destruction, but they also target the power plants, the nuclear plants that creates even more devastation and things that cause the power to go out and never come on again. The Bible talks about the lights to go out and never come on again. So think about that. And again, like you said, that's just one. Imagine if there were multiple warheads. So we really need to be aware and awakened right now. When you talk about the laws and how our laws are changing and all this stuff that's coming up, we talk about them now trying to put the prayer, 10 commandments and those things back in the school system. And the average person said, well, that's great. But listen, when you're starting to force people, we talk about it with the teachings that the government doesn't have the right, the state should have nothing to do with the first 4 commandments. Those are, thou shalt serve no other God. Those are those commandments where you have something to do with God. Thou shalt not kill, all that. Fine. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. All that, the last 6 commandments, that belongs to the state. They can have that. But they're getting ready to bring up false worship by telling us what God we can worship, how to pray, who to pray to. The gentleman in Texas right now wants this prayer. See, everybody has to sit there for 30 minutes or whatever and watch prayer and watch this and do all that. It's happening right before our face. It's just a matter of time before the mark of the beast arises. We're seeing the image of the beast forming. We're seeing so many things. How can we not see this destruction coming? How can we not see what God said?
You know what? Someone in the chat a while ago, Kevin, just wrote, I don't think they will use those weapons now, maybe after the plagues. That's the problem. You don't think.
You don't think.
You don't think.
You're not thinking.
Do I need to repeat what I said a few moments ago and last Sabbath? How many of you would have thought that there would have been a pestilence 19 crisis that shut the whole world down for almost 3.5 years?
Rain?
Kevin, are you there? Okay. Let's wait until we get him back. That is the issue. You don't think. Remember this. There are going to be preliminary crises before the great crisis. Kevin, are you back?
I am here. Yes, they're going to, it's something, but we're just not awake. When they said it wouldn't rain, when they said this wouldn't happen, God wouldn't destroy the world, it did happen. They were not thinking. Simply weren't thinking. We have been warned and warned. We have history to look at. We have biblical history. We have a short history of our existence to look at to see God's words being fulfilled.
Hey, Kevin, do you remember what happened on September 11, 2001?
Yes.
How many folks would have said, we don't think such buildings would come crumbling down in a metropolitan populated area as Manhattan, New York. Did it happen?
It did happen.
How many billions of dollars went up in rubble and smoke and fire, computers and files and monies? They don't care about that. How many souls died in Manhattan? How many had black lungs, Kevin? Black lungs as a result of inhaling the soot, the chemicals in the air, died as cancer in the lungs. Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, they're still dying from that. Actually, it was 7 buildings. We know about the World Trade Center, the 2 buildings that went down, but there was actually 7 buildings that went down. And firefighters, believe it or not, even today, as long ago as that was, are still dying from that lung disease. It's devastating. It's devastating. And people said it would not happen. You thought you had people coming into the country then that infiltrated and went to flight school. What about now with these open borders? What about now with these people coming in? They're finding that people are being smuggled in through Canada. They just found an Indian family that froze to death. People were bringing them in through Canada. But they also had other people. They tracking these people coming in through Canada. This country is infiltrated, if I could use that word. This could happen again, and it will happen.
Yes. And that's why we're saying we just simply need to be prepared. Be prepared. There has to be, in order for America to enforce that mark of the beast, something so catastrophic has to happen, and particularly bring America down financially. The love of money, Kevin, is the root of all evil. And the apex of evil is false worship. So something cataclysmic must take place to bring America to her knees, for people to say, we want to turn this nation back to God in the form of Sunday worship. Be prepared. This must happen before the Battle of Armageddon. Let
Absolutely.
us be found prepared. Someone
You know,
wrote in the chat, Kevin, someone wrote, Lord have mercy on Trinidad and Tobago. They're only a dot on the map. Someone wrote, Jamaica is only a dot on the map. Kevin.
I was going to say, it's a shame that regular media doesn't carry this that we're talking about right now, and that our presidents and our religious leaders don't see this and don't teach this. Our awareness is just really bad. Our leaders should be standing up. They should even recognize by now who certain people are in the world. You can physically look and see who people are and who they represent without me saying too much. We should be able to see that right now. And our world leaders should wake up and push what you're pushing right now. Should make our people aware of what's the things that's getting ready to come and what's to happen, especially when we have so much history to look back on.
So, Kevin, without giving away names and locations, what have you been hearing from your intel about Cuba?
Oh, well, what we've been hearing
Cuba is next door, not only to Jamaica, but to where, Kevin? Talk to us.
Oh, Cuba's 90 miles from us. But because it's 90 miles, this is what just happened with Ukraine and Russia. The type of missile that they used traveled 10 times faster than the speed of sound, which meant Ukraine is so close to Russia, it used to be part of Russia, they had no time to prepare. It was more than 90 miles away. They were 100 and something miles away. The type of warhead they used burst into 6 when it drops. It carries 6 warheads and they all dropped. And if you see the videos on the news channels, it boom, 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 boom. And there was no time to prepare. Russia has moved then to Cuba, which is 90 miles. That literally gives us no time to prepare when something travels 10 times the speed of sound. Not only can you not get a plane in the air, you can barely get the words over the radio that we need to get a plane in the air. So we are right there.
Now, Kevin, your intel was telling you that they had, I'm not sure if I have the right term, but ships or instruments that can sniff.
Absolutely.
As dogs sniff to find different things, that they can sniff out nuclear weapons?
Absolutely. So what happens is America has what's called nuclear sniffers. And these ships can go out, and these planes can go out, and they can sniff to see if there's any nuclear action happening. I don't know if you remember back a bunch of years ago, maybe about 20 years now, all of a sudden they looked up and they saw a Russian submarine off the Atlantic coast, in the Atlantic Ocean, off the coast of New York. They had gotten in that far. Technology, as you see it today, what they tell you today, it's actually old technology. You mentioned that earlier. But these sniffers go up and they sniff, and they're able to check the water, check the air, and see if there's any nuclear items, in the vicinity. But the way things work now with the speed of these supersonic, even super than supersonic missiles, your timeline, it works against us. I mean, it's so fast. We don't have time to get planes in the air. There was one example that came that the technology with planes, matter of fact, Elon Musk, such a great guy. I was reading a piece where he has a warplane that can get to a other part of the world and back before the American plane almost gets up in the air. It can get up in the air and get out a few areas, but his Elon Musk plane is back. So don't think Donald Trump picked Elon Musk for just for no reason. The technology that these countries now possess is massive, massive, massive. Right. So these sniffers are out there, but we can be made aware of these things as well. With, again, Geiger counters, things like that, because there's going to be something, Pastor, that they use called a dirty bomb. And that's where they take these waste, this nuclear waste and all these things, and they create a dirty bomb that they can use in different areas. All the people that's in this country, and they've really proven that Iran has infiltrated this country. They really proven that other countries have infiltrated this country. We need to acquire some of these things ourselves, and these are available online. But more than that, we need to have equipment and food and water stored up, prepared, and head to the country.
Okay, Kevin, let me get to your book right now. Just 3 quick things, and then let's get to your book. Number 1, and this is important, Dynamiter in the chat writes, Cuba Missile Crisis in 1962. So some Absolutely. Of these things were already being planned, and because one then president pumped the brakes on that, what happened? He choked on a bullet in Texas. He was assassinated. We're talking about JFK. So yes. The powers that be have been laying the groundwork for this for quite some time. Then Jason writes in the chat, Operation Northwoods, based on what happened in New York City. So these things are already being planned. Thirdly, let's go future and come back to the present. Let's go future. When the winds of strife and destruction are released during the 7 last plagues, the Battle of Armageddon, imagine nations are throwing nuclear bombs all over the place. Where will God's people be? Right here on the earth, which shows God is going to protect his people. And that should be a source of encouragement. In the midst of turmoil, God is going to protect his people. Since we believe that will happen in the future, why should we, as God's people, not believe he will protect, he will preserve us now in any crisis? But that doesn't mean that we are lackadaisical. That doesn't mean that we become cynics and scoffers and mockers. It's time to implement the 5 keys of survival so God can preserve and protect. Kevin, your book, speak to us. Your new book here.
Wow, God has blessed us to bring out a book called Country Living, Just About Everything, Including God. And it says more than a guidebook. The first 2 chapters is going to give you a great guide on things you can do in the country. But once you get past those first 2 chapters, it gets in depth about why we should listen to the scripture, why we should follow God's word in the direction. Ellen G. Wright wrote a lot of books, wrote some things on country living. She wrote a great book on country living. We even expounded on that and added some things for modern day. Like I showed you 50 handheld power tools, not electric tools, power tools that you can use and need. How to build your root cellars, how to build your sheds. Got a lot of DIYs there. But it also has lots of scripture that tells us how to live for God. It even prepares you for having your home church, how to go about having church and services in your home. Because remember, they're getting ready to force things on you. Jesus couldn't go to the everyday church like we think. They tried to kill him. I mean, what could happen? John the Baptist had to preach and teach in the wilderness. That's where we are, and that's where we're going to be even more so. So this book has great things on how to be prepared, how to stay prepared, how to help others, the keys of survival, food preservation, how to grow land, how to cultivate, Pastor. It even deals with how to bring people together and live as groups. And all your legal things are there. It deals with so much more that is just not funny. So as you hit chapters 11, 12, 13, it's 42 chapters of just great success. And God,
11,
yes,
12,
sir.
and 13. It's on the screen right now. And chapter 12 is real food to eat. Chapter 13, growing food and storing it. Chapter 14, growing food and selling it at the market. Farming for new people in the country. Preserving food, plants, and knowing them in the country, etc. Kevin.
Absolutely, because it tells you how to prepare. Then there's a chapter that it tells you about how to start a business to be successful in the country. And when the event you're out there now, how do you be self-sustained? I don't want to leave my job. I show you tons and tons of different businesses that you can be successful with in the country. And then when you get into the latter chapters, you'll see Daniel, you'll see a little bit about the book of Daniel, a little bit about the book of Revelation. And it starts to explain to you where we are, what's coming, what Christ told us, what would be the signs of your coming, the abomination of desolations, when you see these things being destroyed. Are we not seeing these things now? Are we not seeing these things? So it's a great insight. It's a great, God bless us with a great spiritual book. And I just want to thank you, Pastor, for your insight, your teachings, and people who have not seen his teachings or followed his word he changed my life. Man to man, I'll be happy to tell you that he changed my life. And I'm older than him, probably twice his age, and I call him father. To me, he's my spiritual leader and guide. This book is, I want to say that this book is inspired because we follow his teachings. We follow the scripture of the Bible. We follow Ellen G. White, one of the most known authors, but the most copied and used authors, but not so much celebrated by the world. The world, if you Google the top 10 authors, her name should pop up as number one. As you start to read some of her books, it will just inspire you on how to raise your children, how to be successful in the home, marriage, church, life, everything is just there. So we went off of a lot of those things to develop this book. And I also want to give great credit to my wife and thanked her for making this all a success, Pastor. But
Yes.
It's there. We got some good things in this book that's going to benefit you.
Now stay right there. I want to just highlight a few chapters that people need to focus on. On chapter, by the way, which chapter mentions how to start a business in the country?
Here, let me bring up my big sheet here because I got so
once
much
you're doing
here.
that, while you're doing that, let me point to one here. You mentioned chapter 6, how to live cheap in the country. I think that chapter people need to focus on. All right? Because you're not going to be gaining more as the second coming of Christ draws near. You must be downsizing to live not above your means, revenue stream income, but below your means. Yes, go ahead, preacher.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that's so deep on how to live. It shows you different ways that you can save money. Everything in the country is going to be a whole lot cheaper, first of all, than it is in the city. And especially if you can produce your own food and you have your own water. I mean, you can eliminate so much and you can save money on purchasing and all those things. The things you did in the city, you don't even worry about in the country. The prices they charge is to represent the city and the senators and congressmen and statesmen and mayors and all that. You don't have those issues so much in the country. So when we talk about things that you can do in the country, it just exposes you to so many different things. Like, let me see, I'll give you being creative in the country. If you go to chapter 41, it shows you things. Being your own everything in chapter 42, it shows you how you can be your own doctor, your own lawyer, your own plumber, your own electrician. And there's insights and other things that we have on the site to also help you with that.
School.
It's
wonderful. Chapter 4 is schooling in the country. Now you mentioned water. I want to focus on that one. That's chapter, because some people don't think about this for country living. Chapter 27 and chapter 28. Types of wells. And chapter 28, septic tanks. Very important chapters.
Very important. Types of wells. You have your sand point well, where you can actually take these pipes that you can buy at your big box store. Even if you don't want that well right now, buy those pipes, because at some point you won't be able to get them. And you get that sand point tip on there. It's a 3-foot pipe. And then you can add 5 more extensions of 5-foot pipes and get yourself using 2-inch pipe. Get yourself a post hole digger. You drive those down in there, post driver, and you can dig yourself a sandpoint well where you can actually use the old hand pump to pump water when you don't have electricity. Prime the pump the water. There's also, and I'll leave the link for this for you. There's also PVC pipes with a shaker valve. If you've got water on your property, you can take PVC valves with a shaker valve, no electricity. Hook that PVC pipe up and shake that right over the water, and it brings water in. You can reduce the PVC down to a water hose and water your garden. In addition to having your regular big wells and all those things, but you have to prepare for the point when you have no electricity. Septic tanks. There's tons of videos, and I'll leave a link for some of these for you all, because on our site, therearepeople.org, we have a lot of goodies. But septic tanks is going to be so key because of disease. In the event you're in the country and your septic tank's backed up, you can't get the people to come and do it anymore to remove those things for you. There are ways you can take 55-gallon drums, split them in half, fold them down, put them down in the ground certain ways, and the ground's going to absorb that. And you have your PVC pipes running way out, so the ground absorbs certain things over a period of time, it dissipates. And it'll show you how to do those things based on how many people live in your home. Outhouses are going to be very key. If it gets to a point where, and in Wisconsin, where we are, Pastor, we still see properties with outhouses on them. So we're take your business to the field. Matter of fact, the property we bought originally had an outhouse on there. So these are things that we got to keep in mind. So that's why we bring all these things to your attention, because we focus on how people lived before we had electricity. We focus on how people got through. We just got electricity, 1800s. Remember that. So we focus on how people survived back then, in addition to adding what we can get now and put up for those times, which puts us ahead of the average person.
You know what? Chapter 1 is so important. People who are new to country living, because when people hear about country living, what they must leave and what they must attain, they become fearful. They
Sure.
don't know where to start. So I love how you began with chapter 1. For those who are newbies, newly come to country living, this idea, this principle from God's word, the do's and the don'ts, so you do not make any mistake. And one thing I appreciate with you, Kevin, is that as I raise a theme, I raise a concern, at the top, you're willing and ready to share practical information. PVC pipe, shaking that thing, moving upstream, getting water
Absolutely.
on, outhouses. You are on point. And that's why I believe this would be a very helpful resource. And there are other resources out there. But when you're getting it from your own people, then you understand that there is the true perspective on the issues, because here's someone from the same household of faith. Kevin.
Pastor, absolutely. And people fear so many things, but all the space you use for fear, you're taking away space you can use for faith. Trust in God, fear nothing, have the faith that God's going to provide for you. When he gave me these chapters of these books, my wife would tell you, I was running around the house. I'm like, he just downloaded tons of chapters in my head. And that's literally what happened. And when God gave that to, we started writing and saw the needs of people. And it's there. So we got 2 chapters that sound pretty much the same. That's 1 and 2, new to country living and a country living lifestyle, but they're totally different as it just attacks. People worry about the cold. It's going to be so cold. Well, this even teaches you how to prepare for that. Consider the ant. The ant gets out, got no leadership, doesn't have to pay rent, doesn't have to do this, don't have to do it. The ant gets up, as soon as that weather's warm, you'll see that ant show up in your house if you drop some sugar on the floor. They're out working. They're out preparing for the season. They're not like the man who just didn't want to even plant anything, but yet he's begging at harvest time. Come on, people. This is giving us insight on how to do things ourselves, how to team up, bring our brothers and sisters together on land. Get an agreement with your brothers and sisters. I got some legal things in there, but come together with spiritual-minded people and let's prepare for what God has, use this time God has given us to prepare and prepare for what he told us is coming.
Kevin, thank you for stopping by and sharing. I want to make sure that when you leave and this is over, you can be at peace knowing that what God said you ought to share, you had time to share. Is there any last word?
Our book is available for pre-release. It'll be in the Amazon stores on the 2nd to 3rd of December. It's available for pre-release right now on our website at therearepeople.org. And please support the book and share that book with people. It's a book download, and it's just, again, it is awesome. It is awesome because it has a lot there. But I think God has a lot more coming for us as well, Pastor. In sharing these scriptures and sharing these words and inspiring and encouraging people. But more than that, we finally recognizing that we as a people need to work together in unison. The people that helped Noah could have been on the ark, could have been on the ship, could have been on the boat, but their mindset, I don't believe it. We need to believe and trust. So thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. All right, friends, let's have a word of prayer. Father in heaven, we're thankful for your blessings today. May we take heed to what we have heard. Bless Brother Kevin Fuller, his ministry. Keep us faithful. Be with his family. Be with those who read, saw, heard, felt your presence in this presentation. By your grace, we lay aside fear, and we thank you for the power. We thank you for the sound mind you have given to us. I thank you for you will give us the resources, the desire, and the power to implement those 5 keys of survival. And we cling to this promise, being confident of this very thing. He who hath begun the good work, he will finish it. Thank you for hearing us. Thank you for answering. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Friends, I want to thank you again for joining us for Midday Power Surge. If you're new here, subscribe, hit that bell, leave a comment, please. And of course, give the video, if you were blessed, a thumbs up. Click that, and by God's grace, I will see you tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern for Midday Power Surge. God bless. Let's be found prepared.